Runnemede Board of Education meeting is called to order. The Board of Education is in compliance with Chapter 231 of the Public Laws of 1975, entitled the Open Public Meetings Act. The time, date, and location of this meeting was appropriately advertised by notifying in retrospect, as well as posting notices in the Borough Hall, Runnemede Post Office, Maryvold School, Aligned Binghamton School, Grace Downing School, and the Runnemede Public School District website. Please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, board members.
Ms. Adair?
Here.
Mr. Davey is not here this evening. Ms. Davidson?
Here.
Ms. Farrell?
Here.
Mr. Murray?
Here.
Ms. O'Brien?
Here.
Ms. Panzarella?
Here.
Ms. Sams?
Here.
Ms. Spalding?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Also present, Mark Iannucci, Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Sean McCarron, Business Administrator, Director of Curriculum Instruction, Ms. Jade Yezzi, Principal of Bingham Downing School, Mr. Steve Keeley, Principal Volt School, Mr. Steve Maloney, Vice Principal Volt School, Ms. Gladys Hubbard, Director of Special Education, and Mr. Frank Hines, Supervisor of Building and Grounds. At this time, I need a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes from February 16th.
I'll make that motion.
Motion made by Maria, seconded by Naomi. Can't do first and a second. Any questions there? Roll call.
Ms. Adair?
Yes.
Ms. Davidson?
Yes.
Ms. Farrell?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
Ms. O'Brien?
Yes.
Ms. Panzarella?
Yes.
Ms. Sams?
Yes.
Ms. Spalding?
Abstain. I wasn't here. Community literacy amendment.
Motion passes.
I think the floor is yours, my friend.
All right, so we are going to present the budget tonight. Again, this needs to be done twice, so tonight what you're going to see is the presentation that we submit to the county office, and the public hearing will be held on April 27th, so don't forget that is the fourth Wednesday of the month. It will be a similar presentation. Things will usually change over that period of time. We'll try to keep this short and sweet to the point. If there's any questions, we'll take them at the end of the presentation. Dr. Karen shared this presentation with most of you. If you had any questions, we ask you to reach out, but if anything pops up that comes to mind, please feel free. So Dr. Karen, you love talking numbers.
Okay, so hi everyone. So this is the budget presentation for 22-23. Just so you know, you are voting tonight to submit the budget to the County Office of Education. The County Office of Education then has to review the budget. That would be the County VA, the County Educational Specialists, and then the County Superintendent for final approval prior to our Board of Education meeting on the 27th. One of the reasons why that is on the 27th, not just because I think it's spring break also, but it's on the 27th because there's a 7 to 10 day time frame that the budget has to be publicly presented and approved within the state of New Jersey. The budget will be posted in the retrospect once we get approval from the County Office of Education, so that way the public will be able to view the budget in its entirety, and then we will be presenting the budget on the 27th. As Mr. I said, oftentimes what's presented tonight versus what's presented on the 27th is usually very similar, unless there's any changes. In my experiences, there have not been any major changes that had to be made in the past 9 years of what gets submitted to the county office.
So that'll be a 6:30. I just saw that too, right? 6:30 on the 27th as well.
Okay, so where we are. So from the 22-23 budget, it's $18,219,901 for that budget coming up. We anticipate coming out of our current budget this year with $1,150,000. Now, a reminder, when we come out of a budget with money, it's not like a household budget where you want to come down to zero at the end. We want to come out with money so we can put money into our capital reserves and our maintenance reserves. Our capital reserves and maintenance reserves, so for example, when we had issues in the 4th and 5th grade wing, the only reason why we were able to move quickly with that problem and able to get students back in their classrooms within the time frame we did was because we had that emergency maintenance reserve. Each year we want to make sure that we are replenishing that. Last year, the board approved repointing, which is the masonry work at Bingham and Downing. because that was something that was needed since there was water coming in certain areas. So that's to secure the building. That was a large amount of money that came out of capital reserve. So that is getting replenished. Now what's interesting is that in the budget it goes in, and then literally come July 1, it's coming out because we're putting it into capital reserves and maintenance reserves that we can use within the year. The county office will tell you, you need to plan for these things to happen and budget for them, because they would rather see you budget the money coming out than not, because you cannot pull that money out unless the only one you can pull out of is the maintenance reserves. The capital reserves you cannot take out after your budget is approved. So while that money is in the bank, if I did not publicly approve to have that money taken out, I cannot change my mind later on and say, oh, I need that money. You have to wait till July 1. So that's some things that not everyone always understands, because school districts work, unfortunately, a little bit differently. So this is our expected. Money gets spent, so we might not come out with $1,150,000, depending on what comes up between now and June 30th. So we might come out with a little bit more, we might come out with a little bit less. That being said, any additional money from 21-22 will be placed or taken off of the capital reserve amount. The capital reserve amount, you can almost replace your entire building, is the maximum that you can pretty much go up to. The maintenance reserve amount, it says it's currently at the max. That is a percentage based on the square footage of your buildings. So our maintenance reserve cap is close to about $600,000. So you'll see in the budget that we might take out 200 each year, because that's the max we can take out at a time each year, but we can also only put into that amount each year when we go back and forth. The money we have coming out of 21-22 budget is due to unspent reserve funds. Also, a portion of our 21-22 needs were offset by state funding and support through CARES, ARP, and ESSER. When you look at those grants and those monies can't be spent to offset other costs, because they're supplementing versus supplanting rules that have to be followed by school districts. So they don't want you to offset the cost of your current needs. They want you to add to your programs and to your facilities based on those additional fundings that are available. 22-23 funding. So this year, school districts are able to take up to 2% in taxes, increasing taxes by 2%. We are increasing taxes, our tax levy, by 1.5% this year. I go over this each year. Last year was a 0% increase. The year prior to that was 1. That being said, any money that is not taken goes into what they call banked cap. So for example, we are going with 1.5% this year. 0.5% of that tax levy increase goes into bank cap for 3 years. So just so you're aware, in let's start from the bottom. In 2019-2020, it was a 2% tax increase. No money went into bank cap. In 2020-2021, it was a 1% tax increase, meaning 1% was in bank cap. 21-22, 0. So now I'm up to 3% because I didn't use the 2% in 21-22. 22-23, 1.5% tax increase, so an additional 0.5% was added to bank cap. Next year, that 1% we did not use goes away, or it can be used. Meaning, instead of a 2% increase, it could be a 3%. So there are school districts, because of the amount of rise in the cost of things across the state, across the country, some school districts are cashing in on that banked cap because they have to due to inflation. At this point in time, we are going with a 1.5% increase. It is not sustainable to do a 0% increase multiple years when the costs within your district are going up, and we are doing major projects, so that money has to be replaced. 21-22, this by far, the bottom table, my office will tell you, I hate doing this every year, because I mentally have to figure out this calculation, and I will say I always like to take notes each year to make sure I do it correctly. So in 21-22, you have to go off of the average home value, which the municipality always helps me with every year, and the annual tax rate. So the average home value is $148,194 at 1.498% in terms of the tax rate for schools. Which means in 21-22 last year, the taxes for school tax were $22,1995 per year in school tax on the average home in Runnemede. When you look at 22-23, the average home is $148,260. The tax rate for schools is 1.509. that is $2237.24 per year in school taxes. So when you go to the third column, that is a $17.29 increase based on the average home cost in Runnemede. When you look at it for a $100,000 home, they always tell you break it down to $100,000. That is an $11 increase based on a $100,000 value. Questions on that?
That's assessed value?
Yes. What's that?
I said, I didn't let it, what I called you about earlier today, I'm like, I still don't remember that, but thank you for explaining.
So
I totally get it, you don't have to say anything else, it's just that I must just.
And in 10 years, the board has not gone into bank cap.
Right.
However, I always like to make the public and the board aware that it's there and what that means, because these terms might get thrown out once a year. So I always like to just go over that in general. Funding. So we received an additional $274,000 from the state this year in equalization aid. ARP ESSER sub-grants. This is what we have remaining left. So while we had certain amounts, money was spent or POs were created to address certain things within the grants. This is the money because these are multi-year grants that you will see coming in. So right now we have $195,000 coming in from the ARP ESSER. That is to go to learning acceleration, mental health, and staff development. Under ARP ESSER main grant, we have $500,000 remaining. That is for boiler and HVAC upgrades and also instructional supplies. Then we have the ESSER 2, which is another grant for learning acceleration and mental health. And you will see that there's overlaps from all of these grants in terms of what they have to be used for. And that's a whole other process. And then there is an ARP homeless portion, which is $6,900 to go towards students who are homeless or displaced for whatever reasons. We can use that money, whether it be for transportation, additional services, before and after care for the students, depending on how they're getting to and from school each day. The district will carry over $80,000 about from food service and before and after care, which is reflected in this budget. So food service and aftercare work as separate entities, like almost their own businesses. So at the end of the year, the district charges before and after care and food service for using the facilities. And that's how we're able to bring money into the budget from those areas. And we have to do that because when the auditors come, they look to make sure that you don't have more than 3 months operating costs within your budget. In the past, that money has gone towards different things within the school facilities that we've been able to put that towards. Preschool grant for the 22-23 year. We are receiving $1,128,634. That is a $5,000 decrease, don't ask me why, from, it's the state numbers, from the 21-22 school year. With that, we have $65,000 that is being carried over from the 21-22 school year. So that might be in areas that we didn't spend. It might be money that was allotted for a field trip that we weren't able to take, depending on the part of the year. We're scheduling that now. In addition, that grant money is for our pre-K 3 and 4 general education students. Our classrooms are inclusive classrooms, which means there can be up to 5 special education students in those classrooms. The services that those special education students receive within the preschool setting are not funded by the grant, which means that the general budget has to support the special education funding for the grant. So with that, and this has always been the case, $320,000 is added in from the general account for special education students, bringing our total preschool budget for the 22-23 year to $513,634. Questions on that? 22-23, we are looking at bringing in a math intervention specialist. That's like our basic skills teachers who push in specifically for the middle school in math, which would be for both Tier 2 and Tier 3 instruction. Tier 2 is where you're servicing about 10% of your student population, pushing into the classrooms. Tier 3 is about 5% of your student population pulling out for the students who need the most help and support in those areas. We already have intervention specialists in language arts and math set up at the elementary levels. So last year, the board, we brought in a math coach to support teachers across all grade levels currently looking at grade level numbers to ensure staff is being fully utilized. Looking at certain grade level numbers where we might have only 60 students or where we have classrooms at a much lower number. It's not a lot of grade levels, it's about 1 or 2. We are truly trying to assess to see if we would possibly be moving from 4 at a grade level to 3 classrooms at a grade level, and then not reducing the number of staff members, but utilize, I see our union president, vice president, not reducing our staff members, however, using them in different capacities that might best serve our students. Sometimes we have a large amount of students in one grade level and possibility of maybe offsetting that. So those are numbers that the administration are carefully reviewing and constantly looking at. Registered behavioral technician training will continue to be available for all current instructional aides to become certified. That's a $4,000 stipend once they receive their certification. That's given each year participating staff members for both training and the stipend. Of course, we're still looking for instructional aides. It has been hard to secure instructional aides, and we are looking for instructional aides within the district. Also, we are looking for a bus driver for the school. We are looking at getting, we are looking at getting a 3rd bus. Looking at our out-of-district cost alone, it would be cost effective for us to get a 3rd bus that would be handicap accessible to transport our students who are going out of district. Based on that need, the bus would pay for itself based on our current projections within 2 years. You have a school bus for 10 years. So at that point, and with transportation costs going up, that would be something that we feel is in the best interest and also would eventually generate more money within the district, because what we could also then do is if we're only transporting 4, well, we can fit 6. That would be an opportunity for us to reach out to local districts who might have a student going to the same location and telling them that we could transport their students as a go-between. So that's how we can also bring money into the district, hopefully, with that. And then also a part-time custodian. That kind of ties in with the bus driver for full-time with other responsibilities. That's kind of a 2-in-1 thing that we would need if the other came to fruition. Questions on any of that? Facilities. So capital reserve projects. That's major projects going on within the district. Flooring, we have done, you see flooring every year. You're probably like, how much flooring can we do? Flooring, if you remember, we had carpeting pretty much in every classroom. We are coming towards the end of it. However, we still have carpeting that has asbestos tile underneath. So oftentimes those are projects that have to be done over the summer months, and it's removing an entire elementary classroom. You cannot do all of them at once. So you need to spread out because the hallways fill up very quickly. So we are looking at doing flooring projects. Backflow preventers. We received a message from the water company, as did every other school, saying that backflow preventers were our responsibility. I guess that's also so wastewater does not come back into the building. Am I saying that correctly, Frank? And they said it had to be done within 45 days. So of course all school districts were like, hey, maybe you don't realize how things function. We can't do that within 40 days, 45 days, like, help us help you. We were responsible for the cost. We were thinking it would be, $5,000 to $10,000. It's a $50,000 project. So they gave us an extension until August. So we will be able to put that in place for July 1. And that's not just us, that's everywhere. Looking at those bathrooms, the main bathrooms when you come in, and then also the nurse's office, looking to upgrade those bathrooms. We are not removing everything, and this is always a point of contention. When you start removing walls, we are replacing flooring, we are replacing fixtures, we are painting, we might be switching out lights. There's always a question regarding when you do a certain amount of work, what permits you need to receive. The upgrades that we are doing do not require permits. If permits were pulled, our bathrooms would then have to change out completely. As a district, we have ADA compliant bathrooms. The amount of space within those locations don't necessarily allow us that opportunity. So that is why the term upgrades is being used, because we are simply replacing out fixtures, changing flooring. We are not moving any of the piping or plumbing. That is what's there. HVAC upgrades, which we're continually doing. We're starting to see progress with that and the ability to monitor our HVAC units across the district. Bingham and Downey will also have asphalt projects taking place, totaling $200,000.
What do you mean, like the whole
certain areas in terms of
We don't have to park a lot of them.
playgrounds, asphalt. And then that will leave 100,000 in capital reserves before adding the money at the end of 21-22. As I said, it's money in, money out. It goes back and forth. 22-23 curriculum. Right now, all of our guys are updated. There are new curriculum guides. There are not major changes within that. Social studies, visual and performing arts, science, health and physical education. All of those will be updated prior to the August 2022 meeting. We will review and assess the following programs, which would be science, social studies, health and physical education. I always say that there's a very large difference between programs and curriculum. Your programs that you have would be your text, your resources, all of those things. Your curriculum are the standards that are addressed within those materials and resources. So it's two separate things. So we have Envisions, that is not our curriculum. Envisions is our program and resource that teachers use for math. We then have our curriculum, which outlines the order in which Envisions is done, the standards that are taught across that board throughout the course of the year. Any questions on any of those? My favorite slide is that one. 2013 to present. I was
We're gonna have to
highlighting.
go to 2 pages.
I'm gonna have to extend it onto 2 pages, you're correct.
Loves them.
So, okay, so 2013 to present, the things highlighted are the things that we are doing this year. Math intervention specialists in grades 6 to 8. All curriculums and resources will be current. That was just moved down because we will be updating that per QSAC regulations in the Department of Education. HVAC and boiler upgrades, bathroom upgrades, additional bus driver from that district. New classroom smart boards. We do that in phases. So we do order smart boards every year. There's about 7 to 10 that we order, and then we switch them out. We order them based on the order in which they came in, so it kind of cycles through every 6 years. Questions? And then if I did that, I was going to have to move my column over,
I see.
and it was just too close to the wires. A lot of
I
pressure.
mean, that's good.
A lot of pressure.
Change the font.
I mean, you know it'll be added before the 27th. Okay. You won't be able to see it. Are you wearing glasses? Okay. Here we go. So, any questions or comments regarding the budget? Okay, so unfortunately, we'll probably hear the same presentation on April 27th. If you have any questions, let me know. And of course, if anything changes between now and then, the board will be informed of that as well, based on the county.
So this is on to be approved this evening, so you can send it out to the county, correct?
Correct, yes.
All right, any questions, anybody? Okay, so are we having? Towards the end?
We're going to just approve everything, so that way if anyone has any questions, and then we will get to interrogate, because there's no action items after.
All right, that's fine. Okay, so no correspondence. At this time, we're open for public comments on agenda items only. Dr. McCarron. Anybody have any public comments at this time? No? All right, superintendent's report.
All right, I will not take much of your time. District enrollment is still steady at 805. Dr. McCarron did mention QSAC. We're still waiting for more areas where QSACs to take place. They're not doing a site visit. There's some other areas they want to look at. Get that data that correct. So I'll hold my breath on that. So I'll let you know once they come out. That's before the end of the school year. I'm thinking maybe towards the end of May will be out. District principals and teachers and staff are planning spring of the year activities. Now they're going to do more in our buildings, outside our buildings. You'll see some information going on into the district. So that we're trying to there's a couple spring festivals over in Maine and Downing. I know end-of-year activities at boats. Kids and the staff. Summer programming, SY. That information will be sent out rather shortly. We're still trying to secure some activities for some trips and staff. I mentioned everything is going up in price, so we might see some increases in fresh field trips and things like that.
There should be no increases then.
Not the cost, yeah, it's fine. There are prices going up in both places. School calendar is for approval for 22-23. It's very similar to the last couple of years. That in your packet. Roundtable, discussion was budget, very exciting, as well as health and safety protocols in the health department. There is a discussion regarding retired teachers. Bring them back this year and next year, so we kind of want to affect their pension. I think if we don't really have so much of a staff, we'll probably hire teachers at this point to work construction rates. I know some districts bring teachers back, working those roles as well. So reach out and see what we can get. And then the last thing I have for you is I want to thank everyone, especially for all the hard work with the RYAA basketball that they had.
We need to thank you.
And everything. Oh, not thank me. I got cut into that basketball. And I appreciate the staff who contributed to those baskets. We had 2 baskets from Colts, one each from bringing them down, and one from the business office, board office. So I appreciate that. Captain Murray for your leadership in that game. Great job.
Yeah.
We should probably start practicing now for next year's game.
Seriously.
I heard you did a good job, Mark. That's what my brother told
I don't know
me.
about that. Your brother's very competitive still, which I appreciate.
Yes.
So I do have a
It
fun
runs in our
event.
blood.
After expenses, somewhere around between 7 and 7,500.
It was a nice event, so thank you everyone involved. And that's all I have. Any questions?
2 new staff members came in, which was incredible. The preschool aide
Yeah.
and a 4th grade teacher. It was awesome.
We needed all the help we could.
But it's nice, new to the district. It was incredible.
I know that I said this to both of you, but maybe if we can let the parents know, if you do like a weekly blog or something, for the past like 2 to 3 weeks, everywhere I go, even at work, for people who live in Runnemede, the parents of young children have been asking about summer camp and summer options because all of the other places are currently enrolling. So if we can get that out sooner rather than later. I know that we're still working on some things and trying to secure staff, but it just is imperative for our working parents in the community because everywhere I go, I get asked that.
We could probably put out the fact sheet. I have the registration slotted to go out April 1st, which is Friday.
Okay.
But Ms. Rude and I are just finalizing the registration process, everything like that, making sure everything's lined up. But yeah, we can absolutely get the fact sheet out.
I think that would be
this week.
beneficial for the.
And we'll just let them know that April 1st will be when it will open up and be on the website.
Okay, thank you. That would be great.
No problem.
Any other questions for Mark? All right, Dr. McCarron.
Okay, so it's quote-unquote budget season, as you know, I just did that presentation. On top of that, the state has put out additional reports that are due with all of the federal grants. I guess they thought that was due this week also, so that was exciting and fun. Our audit is finalized. The board that is attached to this evening's agenda as well. There were 0 findings with the audit. Our auditors have, come annually to discuss those items, and everything is in order as it should be. There are no findings. And the reason why it took so long is because they wait on their audit regulations to come out in order for that approval. So I always laugh because we'll be going back into an audit in 3 months, is when we restart our audit on July 1st after we close out June 30th. So this is the latest, I think, in my experience that we've ever had that. In addition to that curriculum side, we are currently planning out our March PD, which is coming up. We also have our literacy consultant coming in to push into classrooms. She has 2 more visits that she'll be joining teachers for our new literacy program that was implemented this year with Fonsa Now. Testing's going on, observations are being finalized, and then also our pre-K program was just, we had someone we were required to with the grant be evaluated by Rutgers University here, and they have outside people come in and then they score our rooms. So they come in, they don't tell us what room they're going into, they observe our program, they observe what curriculum is being implemented, they observe the way in which the classrooms are set up, they look to see where the students travel, how the rooms are operating, and then we get an evaluation based on that. So hopefully we'll hear sooner rather than later on that. However, everything went smoothly as far as I was told. Any questions for me?
This evaluation,
Rutgers University. And then that's through Grow New Jersey Kids, which is where the money for our pre-K program comes from.
So they need to have a follow-up on.
It's like the federal compliance factor for preschool. And then they hire consultants through them. Usually it's retired early childhood supervisors, educators. And there's a rubric called ECHRS. So they will look to see where do the students travel, like to get to the playground. Or is it a safe environment? Are the bathrooms set up with small toilets? All of the regulations, if you look in code, that are required to be filed for a preschool classroom, they ensure the fact that those are all met.
This is the first year we've had to do this.
I stay very quiet because I don't like these, so this is the first time that they've come out, you know.
Thank you.
Usually they're occupied with other districts with larger problems. So, you know, now they're catching up though, so it's been a while.
Any questions for Dr. McCarron? Any other questions?
No, but I've got to thank you to your new business office again with the audit.
And budget.
And also all of our school offices, Ruby, before and after care, because all of those areas get audited as well. So they are required to turn everything in and here to make sure that's all.
It just kind of justifies that we have the right staff in place. There weren't even recommendations.
I get very upset for that.
Well, I'm just saying, you have no reason to be upset yet.
All right, any district reports, any questions for the principals or the nurses, building and grounds, and special education director, while they're here? Anyone? No? Mrs. Yazzie, I liked your picture of your students smiling with no mask on.
Very nice.
I just had to make that comment.
I like your potato chip shirt.
Yeah.
I looked for one online, and I'll sell an extra large, so.
You're a daily,
PTA report, I will say that for the board, like the PTA is going full speed ahead with things that happen to help with, and as you know, our PTA helps us with funding field trips. So they, in the upcoming months, will have their big basket auction, and you know, I like to do as a board, I like to all of us to throw in something to do a major, so you'll look for a text from me on one of the major prizes, and then if you or anyone you know like to support them, because they are going full speed ahead with the basket auction and the 8th grade dance and things like that. So please remember to support our PTA, because they do so much for us as a district and for our kids. And the only other thing I can say on their committee reports is look in the next couple weeks to a month or so. Mr. Iannucci and I, sorry, not me either. Mr. Iannucci and I are beginning the process of his chief school administrator evaluation, which you know we have to have done, and all of us do, before June. So our new board members, I'll help you along with that process, but we got the ball rolling. But we were worrying more about budget and things like that, so it'll be coming up probably, let's to be safe and say, in May, and then we'll go over it and then have everything approved in June, so we get all of our QSAC points for that. Yes, does that sound right? Any other committee reports at this time?
We, ad hoc negotiations team we met twice. We made great progress, and I believe tonight we're going to sign and ratify or give to.
So we made progress now that we've signed the memorandum of agreement. The union will ratify, and then next month, most likely, as long as everything goes well, we will meet in executive session to go over the memorandum of agreement. We will probably do executive before we vote, like in the beginning of the meeting, like we have in the past, to go over things, and then you will vote on that.
Thank you.
Sorry.
About that.
No, you're good.
Dan,
Yes, Patty.
I'm sure everybody got their flyers in the mail saying that the convention this year is live again.
I did.
I
You didn't know that?
did.
I'm surprised.
I heard word of mouth at a party, but I didn't get anything official.
Yeah, it was a postcard.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Yeah.
Yes.
planning and zoning was rescheduled for March 23rd.
Oh yeah, that's right. I saw that. March 23rd.
Their application is now complete.
Has anyone reached out to you in regards to them to townhomes and trying to? No, not at all?
Not at all.
Okay.
I reached out to them.
No, I'm talking to our administration.
No.
Just asking. Anything else?
They won't. So,
Okay. Then we'll move on to new business. Property and transportation. I need a motion to approve items numbers 1 and 2.
I'll make a motion to approve items 1 and 2 on property.
Motion made by Maria, seconded by Patty. Roll call.
Mrs. Dare,
Yes.
Ms. Davidson,
Yes.
Ms. Farrell,
Yes.
Mr. Murray,
Yes.
Ms. O'Brien,
Yes.
Ms. Panzarella,
Yes.
Ms. Sands,
Yes.
Ms. Paul.
Yes.
Strawberry picnic, no, you said it.
Motion passes.
We're going back to preschool.
At this time, there was a number 6 was added, so it looks like we need a motion for items under personnel numbers 1 through 6.
I'll make a motion to approve items 1 through 6 on personnel.
Thank you, Maria.
Second.
Second, Naomi. Questions? Roll call.
Mrs. Dare,
Yes.
Ms. Davidson,
Yes.
Ms. Farrell,
Yes.
Mr. Murray, Ms. O'Brien,
Yes.
Ms. Panzarella,
Yes.
Ms. Sands,
Yes.
Ms. Spalding.
Yes.
Just to clarify, you would be able to as well.
I love them all, but I'm just saying, I personally know them.
Just wanted to clarify.
We good?
Good?
Under finance, I need a motion to approve items numbers 1 through 10. Motion made by Dan,
I'll second it.
seconded by Maria. Questions? Roll call.
Mrs. Dare,
Yes.
Ms. Davidson,
Yes.
Ms. Farrell,
Yes.
Mr. Murray,
Yes.
Ms. O'Brien,
Yes.
Ms. Panzarella,
Yes.
Ms. Sands,
Yes.
Ms. Spalding.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Mr. Maloney, good luck with that 16-hour Zoom meeting. Sorry, that's ahead of me, got contact with you real quick, good luck with that. Under curriculum, I need a motion to approve items numbers 1 and 2, please.
I'll make a motion to approve items 1 and 2.
Motion made by Patty,
Second.
second by Naomi. Questions? Roll call.
Mrs. Dare,
Yes.
Ms. Davidson,
Yes.
Ms. Farrell,
Yes.
Mr. Murray,
Yes.
Ms. O'Brien,
Yes.
Ms. Panzarella, Ms.
Yes.
Sands,
Yes.
Ms. Spalding.
Yes.
Motion passes.
At this time, I need a motion for items numbers 1 through 7. So there's some donations and fundraisers going on down there. Want this and the school calendars here too, under policy and public relations.
Take it.
Motion made by Dan,
Second.
second by Patty. Any questions there? Roll call.
Mrs. Dare,
Yes.
Ms. Davidson,
Yes.
Ms. Farrell,
Yes.
Mr. Murray,
Yes.
Ms. O'Brien,
Yes.
Ms. Panzarella,
Yes.
Ms. Sands,
Yes.
Ms. Spalding.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Oh, I didn't see that doing, I'm sorry. At this time, we're open for public comment of any citizens or staff. Hi, this is Kelly.
Well, I just want to say, Eleanor Kelly, 161 Forest Avenue. I attended the big event for the Cancer Weekend. It was wonderful. And Mr. I, you were great. And don't denigrate yourself. You were good. I was rooting for you.
Find out Mrs. Kelly's favorite, knock that off.
It was a great event.
It's a nice
And
event for
I'm
our
glad
town.
to hear that you made over 7,000. That's
It's
terrific.
amazing.
Yeah, terrific. I mean, it was one weekend and everybody was out.
It's a,
The
yeah,
whole town was out. It was
Always.
amazing.
yeah.
The school bus. You said about the school bus. What kind of a school bus? Big one, little one?
It'll be a 24, so it's a 24 passenger, however, there's seats removed out of it, so that way it's handicapped accessible. So the one side is removed, and then there's seats on the other side.
So that way
And
you
it
can
will
strap
have
down the wheelchairs if need be.
And it will have a lift on the side. That's what that means.
So it'll seat maybe 10, 12 on one side, and then the other side would be for
Might
wheelchairs.
see 4 plus 2 to 3 wheelchairs, depending on the size of the
Oh,
wheelchairs.
okay. And what's that cost? Is it
It
more
will be,
because?
so we go through state co-op for that. It's about $72,000. However, it's then $8,000 in surplus costs because of additional costs in getting materials at this time. All companies have that additional surcharge through the co-ops.
Okay.
So about 80 total, sorry.
On March the 19th, we have a rabies clinic. So I'm sure everybody is aware of that. And from 10 to 12, the Women's Club is collecting donations, either cash or food for the animals, all going to Homeward Bound. So if you can remember, bring your cat or dog. March 31st is licenses due. After that, if you don't have your license, you get charged a very substantial late fee. So I just want everybody to be aware of that. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Kelly, donations.
Any other public comments at this time?
I'd like to acknowledge a Runnemede staff member who took the day off last Friday and didn't have enough. Mrs. Wilson took a day off. Barb can attest to this. You want to talk about deserving thanks for Cancer Weekend? My girl had off. How many times did I text her or call her? She brought tape. She brought easels. She fixed baskets. She made baskets. So her day off was literally dedicated to half of the success, seriously, of last minute issues that no one else could fix. So special thanks to you, Mrs.
Thanks, Mrs.
Thank you,
Wilson.
Mrs. Wilson.
I mean, I'm 43 years old, and I think I started school here when I was 4, and you've been doing it. You've been my idol since I was 4, so, I mean, that's nothing new to her. She doesn't think that's just what she does, but we thank you. Thank you.
I'll say something. I'd like to thank the business administrator superintendent for putting such a good budget together. It looks like you're going to really do what's best for our community. So it's nice to see that you try, and still, I feel that our schools don't do without. We always are looking to do things for our schools, and since Frank came, our buildings, like everybody that sees our buildings, we never know they're as old as they are. And if something breaks, I know just because of where I work, the phone call comes and it's fixed, and who's out there and fixing it and making sure that it's done right, and always keeping over things.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
That is really good.
It's just, it doesn't go, so as old as they are, we're keeping them up so that we don't have to worry about that new building that we all would like to see and putting everybody in one building, but, we do what we can with what we can.
If there's no other public comment at this time.
I have something I'd like to,
sorry.
I'd like to recognize one of our students and our president's son, who is a state championship wrestler from this past weekend. He's a kind, great student, and highly dedicated to wrestling. And he won a state championship. But if you haven't seen the video online of him and his father celebrating, it's worth it. So congratulations.
Thanks, I appreciate it, but he does all the hard work, I just pay
You
for
can
it.
reach.
Thank you, though.
Money well spent is what we're saying.
Yeah, that was his goal before high school, so he achieved it, but it wasn't easy, so. It was a 17-hour day up in Trenton, so he didn't even win till like 10 p.m. at Sunbank Arena, so it was great. At this time, if there's no other comments, we would like to bring up Terry Lewis, who is our New Jersey School Board Association representative. We asked her to come out and help our new school board and our veteran school board members understand ethics for school board members. So I did attend the legal training, and
with the changes with the School Ethics Commission.
yes, and
Yeah.
I did have whoever the woman was in charge email me like all of the PowerPoints that they went over from all the little mini subsections. So my board did get to see all of them last month, but we thought that it would be beneficial to have you here.
That was was that the changes that they're proposing, or were they the release of the advisory opinions?
The opinions.
Okay. So before we start, I will tell you that the School Ethics Commission, we're going to talk about the School Ethics Commission in a minute for those of you that don't know, they have proposed some new rules, and some of them are kind of eye-opening. So as we get to those sections in this presentation, I'll let you know what they are, because we went over a couple of them today. New Jersey School Boards is going to provide feedback to the State Board of Ed on these, but it was really, really eye-opening as to some of the things that they were doing. So you promised me a clicker.
Just make that noise, I don't know.
Big.
You say ding, and I got you. It's fine.
Okay, so why are we doing this? You know, this is a requirement for, oh my gosh, she's even killing my whole thing. Now go to the next one. Keep going.
You're supposed to say ding.
Okay.
I'm not processing this one. Come on.
So one of the things that you have to do for QSAC, and I think you mentioned that, you know, QSAC is going to come out, this is something that they'll monitor.
We just went through it. We did well on this one.
Is you have to have an annual discussion of the code of ethics. It doesn't have to be me coming out, present, whatever, but it is good every so many years that you do keep up on that. But you at least have to have an annual discussion that is outlined in your minutes. We haven't done that, which I think you've already done that. That's fine, so I'm just supplementing to that. Ding. So we're going to talk about the School Ethics Act very quickly, because it was enacted in 1992, believe it or not. You know, you figure 100 years of education, over 100 years of education, it wasn't until 1992 that they felt they had to put in an Ethics Act. And when they did, it did actually 4 things. It established the School Ethics Commission. It established what conflicts of interest looked like at that time. The mandatory training requirements for school boards. Some people think that was us. That was not us. This is a requirement in the Act. We are the administrators of the training. And those pesky little financial disclosure statements that you have to fill out annually were also part of the Act. The Code of Ethics, which we're going to talk about today, was not enacted until 9 years later, 2001. So when we talk about the School Ethics Act, you know, the first part of it concerns like money, jobs, influence. The second part of the Act is the Code of Ethics. It's a good way to keep it separate. Ding. So mandatory training, and believe it or not, this is one of the areas that the School Ethics Commission is looking to change, and I'll tell you about the change in the end. But know that if you are a new board member, your first year you have to take governance 1. Your second year and your third year of your first term, you take governance 2, followed by governance 3. One is a finance program, the other is a student achievement program. Every year you are re-elected, you need to take governance 4. You have a year to do that. Please don't wait until the very end. We made a bajillion phone calls at the end of the year this year. Come on, you gotta get this done. So don't wait till the end, because the School Ethics Commission is now proposing that board members take their training within the first 60 days. Oh, there. Yes. And we're sitting here going, wait a minute, that's a little stringent. We're going to talk, you know, we're going to put it back for you guys, but I don't know. They're just saying, hey, 60 days. So keep in mind if that's on the horizon. If you haven't done yours yet, don't know what it is, get a hold of Sean and help me out with this.
They're all
Big. So the School Ethics Commission, we're going to talk about those because these are the guys that are proposing the rules. It's a 9-member board. They are all appointed by the governor. 2 are school administrators, 2 are board members, and 5 are just like regular old folks. The interesting part about it is it's not a full board right now. They have not all been appointed. They've been missing members for some time now. You go on their website and look, even the members that are there are serving expired terms. So that's one of the issues. Why is this important? Because of what they do. They do 2 things. They they give you an advisory opinion, and they hear ethics complaints. An advisory opinion, if you think that you have a conflict or an issue that may possibly violate either the code of ethics or one of the ethics School Ethics Commission, which they haven't had 6 people, so they couldn't make them public. So when Samantha said that, she pulled them all out, those are the ones, they just actually appointed somebody else, they had 6, and they made like 10 of them public. Here's the interesting part, they are talking about the advisory opinions, this is the new proposed rules, that there's certain things you have to do. You have to give the situation, and then you have to say, right, you violating this or this or this. They also want you to go back through all the past ones to see if they've already covered it. And we're like, well, how are you going to do that? You guys file them by year and name. That means you have to go back through, I don't know how many years and how many. So I'm not sure if that's going to fly, but that's one of the proposed changes. We also hear ethics complaints. Ethics complaints can be filed by anyone. It does not have to be in your community, doesn't have to be in your county, does not have to be in your state. Anyone that perceives that you have violated either a tenet of the Code of Ethics or any part of the ethics statute can file a complaint against you, a board member, because you are a school official. School Ethics Commission hears that complaint and they render a decision based on the facts that they have. There are 4 things that they can do. They can reprimand you, they can censure you, they can suspend you, and they can remove you from office. We're going to look at a couple of cases here a little bit later. And there were a couple of people removed, and there were some people suspended. One of the interesting things that came out of these new proposed rules for the School Ethics Commission is that if you have been found to have violated one of the Code of Ethics or an ethics statute, they want you to publicly post it on your website. Yeah, so that's one of the things that they're proposing. So I guess this is a good time that we're having this conversation, so you can start tippy toeing later here. Next slide. Update. So this slide is not quite accurate. This was accurate as of probably 45 days ago, but sometimes it's difficult to get information out of them, so some of these numbers were not quite right. So advisory opinions, there were 20 requested in 2021. There were 30 cases of mandatory training violations and 23 school ethics violation cases that occurred. In the advisory opinions, none were made public, except that we did see 10 of those come out just recently. Mandatory training violations. Quickest way to get kicked off the board, don't do your mandatory training because they're not playing any games here. They removed 7 members, they suspended 5, and they reprimanded 18. So the ethics violations that they heard, 17 were dismissed, 6 cases were recommended to the commissioners that will be discussed later. And I will give you a hint. About 4 of them involved social media. Can you imagine that? So this is the advisory opinion that was made public in 2020. To me, this was kind of a no-brainer because we've already been through this before. But the superintendent, his sister-in-law was employed in the district. And that's okay, could have been, because she was employed there before he became the superintendent. So that's okay. She was lunch aide in the district. She applied for the secretary's job. The principals interviewed her and said, yep, this is the person that we want. The superintendent said, I don't think we can do this. And he actually wrote to the School Ethics Commission for advisory opinion. And they said, you're absolutely right, we cannot do that. We cannot do that. So he did not bring her forward for a recommendation. Things. He's falling down on the job.
God is ready. I'm ready to go.
So let's go into the Code of Ethics, okay? You probably have a copy in front of you somewhere. It goes from A to J.
Inside the board members' folders and the Code of Ethics, and behind that is the PowerPoint presentation that Terry is showing right now.
So the first one is, I will uphold and enforce all laws, rules, regulations, etc., etc., etc. This one really doesn't need any statute, court orders, executive orders, whatever else. So we all found that out these past couple of years. Because I had school districts calling me saying, governor cannot tell me that we can't go to school. I'm like, you want to bet? Here you go, this is it. Next slide, please. This one to me, I don't even know why it's in here. I don't even want people having to be reminded of this, but it is. And it's very important. I make decisions in terms of the educational welfare of children. That's what we're here to do. And we'll seek to develop and maintain public schools that meet the individual needs of all children. You know, not your neighbor's kids, not the kids over here, not the kids over there, all children. Next thing. This one to me is probably the most important because it really defines what your role is as a board member. It will define my board action to policy making, planning, and appraisal. That's what our job is. The second part is really interesting. I will help to frame policies and plans only after the board has consulted those who will be affected. It's not our job to go out and consult, our neighbors. Let's say you want to institute a dress code. It's not up to you as board members to go, you know what, let me ask the people in my neighborhood what they think. Let me put it, let me put it on my Facebook page and put it out there and see who would be in favor. No, that's not what we do, right? What we do is say, hey, Mark, thinking about this, can you raise back some information? Can you get us some information? So he's the one that will figure out how to develop the information to bring back to give you so you can make an informed decision. But those three words are very important. Policy making, planning, and appraisal. So if you think that you might be treading into an area that's not yours, remember those three words. If it doesn't fall in here, those three words are probably out of your name. I will carry out my responsibility not to administer the schools, but together with my fellow board members to see that they are well run. So we all know that as individual board members, you have absolutely no power. You're sitting here now at a legally advertised meeting. You have at least a quorum of the board. Now the board has power. So when you adjourn, you walk out the door, you have no more power than Joe Citizen in regards to what happens here in the schools. Jesse Adams, my partner in crime, likes to say that being on a board is a team sport. You can't do anything by yourself. D. Now this one is really interesting, okay, because this is going to come up in a lot of our examples. These were people that actually were found to have violated the code of ethics. This one comes up a lot. I will recognize that authority rests with the Board of Education. I will make no personal promises or take any private action that may compromise the board. Think about that. Pause. Let's take a look at our first example. Yeah. So, did you get it twice? Oh, it's probably not working on your machine. Okay. It should fly in, but it doesn't. So a board member on his personal Facebook page made anti-Muslim, racist, incendiary, and offensive comments. It wasn't just one, it was a whole dozen. First of all, if you think that your Facebook page is personal and private, I got news for you. It is not. I yell at my kids about this all the time. Because anybody can somehow get a hold of a snapshot of your page and then repost your page to all whoever they want. So even though it is your personal page, keep in mind that it is not private. So in this, the School Ethics Commission said that he took private action that may compromise the board. And this is why. His personal page, his personal views, his right to First Amendment, free speech, whatever you want to call it. Except that they had a large Muslim community. And these people showed up en masse at board meetings and said, is this reflective of how you are treating our kids in school? And the board was like, no, absolutely not. And they said, prove it. So each meeting got a little bit more tense, a little bit more tense. Hence, someone filed the ethics complaint because this was private action that may compromise the board. And the School Ethics Commission said, personal gain or for the gain of friends. That is extremely important. That's not why you're here. Thank you for sitting at board seat. Thank you for sitting in the presidency. I swear to God, how I could do this because no matter what we said to her, every time there was an opening, she would always go, I have the perfect person. And it's like, no, like you can't. No, stop. We don't want to hear it. Tell them to apply, but we don't want to hear it. Next. This one, I like this one. I will hold confidential all matters pertaining to the school, etc., etc. So we're in open session, right? Somebody asks you what happened in open session, you can say, oh yeah, we had this great presentation by Terry Lewis. She came in and talked. It's okay to talk about it. It's open session. However, when you go into executive session or closed session, what happens there must stay there. We call it Vegas. What happens in Vegas has to stay in Vegas. Because there are a lot of things that you talk about in there that if they came out with legal statements or something. There's only like 9 things that you can talk about in executive session. I think the top 4. I don't think I did 5. Student matters, personnel matters, negotiations, legal matters, and the sale and purchase of property. I don't even know what the other 4 are. That's how obscure they are. We don't use them. So if you're talking about anything other than that in executive session, you're doing something wrong. But if you're talking about those 5 things, students, we don't want their information out. They have the right to privacy. Staff, same thing. Any legal proceedings, once they're decided, they'll probably come out, as long as they're not involving personnel and students. Sale of public property, purchase, that's extremely important because my board got tangled up in that. We're going to buy a piece of property. Somebody leaked, and it doubled overnight. We didn't buy a property. So just remember, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Next, please. Here we go. A board member distributed paper flyers. It wasn't even for a board election, it was for a municipal election, actually. But he was urging the voters in their community to vote for a particular political party. He indicated that the other party was part of a radical group, and they were going to take over the town government. We had all in the night. Except that he used his title as a board member, and he did not include any of his name. So it's kind of like saying, you know, hey, I'm Joe Smith, and I'm a board member in your town, and we need to rally together and vote for this political party. So what happened was, when they filed a complaint, whoever filed it said, hey, look, okay, so it looked like he is speaking for the Board of Education. He had no disclaimer. So there goes pesky E again up there. Make no personal promises, nor take any private action that may compromise the board. What did he do? Compromise the board. He surrendered his individual judgment to special interest of partisan political groups. And in all other matters, I will provide accurate information and in concert with my fellow board members. So he was only censured. We think he should have been really slapped hard for that, but he was only censured. Actually, I think he was censured. I'm sorry, I'm wrong, because he got off the board. So that was all he was censured. I will vote to appoint the best qualified personnel after consideration of the recommendation of the Chief Administrative Officer. So everybody knows that the board hires one person, superintendent. Anybody else that is hired in the district comes with a recommendation of the superintendent. Enough said. Next.
I can't read that.
I will support and protect school personnel. Did you bring up the right? I remember looking at this.
It doesn't look like that on our start.
Yeah, ours
It does look different.
Yeah, they look different.
I will support and protect school personnel in the proper performance of their duties. So that means you can't take deliberate action that results in undermining, opposing, or compromising or harming school personnel. You can't. So that means no hanging out out at the ball field and somebody's talking about Terry Lewis, that terrible third grade teacher gives too much homework, we don't listen to any of that. That's not our job. There is a case, ding, and I think it's next. Yes! Oh my gosh, guess what? It's happened in here again. So a board member at a public meeting, and from what I understand, it was not a public meeting, it was a club meeting, it's like an athletic association or something, threatened a coach's job and had done so in the previous year as well. There were some members of the public there that felt very strongly about this. I think there were 5 of them to be exact, and they filed an ethics complaint for failure to support school personnel in the proper performance of their duties, and this board member was suspended for 3 months. Pretty lengthy. Next. I will refer all complaints to the chief administrative officer and will act on the complaints. I feel like we missed one of the cases. That's okay. Did we miss something?
He's much better at blocking erasers than he is.
Okay.
Student helpers.
So Microsoft PowerPoint. We're a Google district.
So what do you do when you get complaints? This is the best part about being a board member, I'm sorry. We're not problem solvers as board members, only when we get together here, right? This is the great part. When somebody comes to you with an issue, you can say, gee, can't help you. Old school. It's really your only answer. Because as an individual, you have no more power when you leave this meeting, right? And you can't bring an individual's issue to this table. So it's really nice to say, I'm sorry you're having that issue. I can sympathize. Old school. Next.
There is a board resolution to approve the hiring of the auditing firm that you work for. Can you participate in the vote?
Let's see here.
You don't have that one.
What's next? I think it's,
We're on page 8.
Yeah. Probably.
There's another one.
Cases on the back.
Okay. All right, we'll keep going. Go through a couple more slides. I'm kind of like, okay, go back. All right, we're good. Go back. Okay, so there's a board resolution to approve the hiring of the auditing firm that you work for. Can you participate in the vote? That's correct. So, if there is any benefit to you as a board member or any benefit to your immediate family due to any of the things on this slide here, recuse yourself from the vote and also from the discussion. You cannot even participate in the discussion. We're going to talk about immediate family. So, School Ethics Commission defines immediate family as parent, child, spouse, sibling that resides in the same household. Okay? However, the School Ethics Commission takes a also much broader look at that when they hear some of these cases. And you can hit the next slide. I think it's here. That's all right. They talk about a relative as being related to my blood marriage or adoption. That's what I would go with. Not this immediate family stuff, because you'll see in some of the things here that they're expanding their definitions. So a board member voted to approve the superintendent's merit goals. We don't have merit goals here, but they did up there. The member's daughter was a tenured teacher in the district at the time the member participated in the vote. She knew better, but she said, it's not his contract, it's the merit goals. You're like, well, the merit goals are part of the contract, we're not going to have them unless it's in the contract. She used her position to secure an unwarranted privilege, advantage, or employment for herself. Or an immediate family member, which was her daughter who was in the district, right? public, I'm sitting there going, you know what, the only reason she's being numerical is so her daughter can have her job. That's what they want. So if I'm a member of the public, I'm like, that's not fair. They can't do that. Precisely. Filed that complaint and, yep, they were reprimanded. Now, here's another one. A board member wrote an op-ed endorsing a candidate for the Board of Education and including a disclaimer. This guy actually said, hey, I'm Joe Smith. I'm a member of the board, but I'm not writing this as a member of the board. I'm writing this just as Joe Smith. That's basically what he said. However, he went on in his little piece to talk about things that happened on the board and comments about board matters. So somebody filed an ethics complaint, and the school ethics commission said, hey, you did the disclaimer properly, but you went on to talk about board matters so that would lead anyone to believe that you were speaking on behalf of the board. So they reprimanded him. And then the last one was a board member voted to approve the use of facilities to an organization which he derived income from. And you can't see it there, I don't know if you can raise it or not, but it's on your thing. I think he was either censured or reprimanded. He wasn't removed. But, you know, when you fill out those disclaimer forms, they ask you where you get your income from, right? So, you put that on there. And then voted for the use of facilities. Okay, go back to that one, this case here, because this case is really, that. Which one was first? Okay, do the other one about the disclaimer. So the disclaimer is really important if you are going to speak about the schools out there or about anything. Say, hey, I'm speaking on behalf of myself, not on behalf of the Board of Education, yada, yada, yada. However, the SEC has noted, and I gave you one of the cases, that even if you're using a proper disclaimer, that whatever you write may render that meaningless. You know, hence the case of the guy before that was writing about board matters, even the one with the personal private Facebook page, and he didn't have a disclaimer, but he said, hey, that's my personal private page, but still, it resulted in disruption. So you need to be really, really careful out there on social media. You know, we had a presentation last year with an attorney. This guy said something, and I will never forget it because you have to think about it. He said nobody ever got in trouble for something they didn't write down. And I sit there and think about that. What does that mean? But truthfully, you're right. He's right. Nobody ever gets in trouble for something they did not write down. Don't put it in writing. Now, I know a lot of times on social media, and I'm a big social media fan, but there are so many times when, you know, I'll click that like button and I'm like, you know what, Karen, you know, it's not right. Think about that. So be really careful what you are posting and what you are replying to about the schools. If it's about the school, about the book, I would post is this. You can call the school to get the answer to that. That's about all I would post. Next. So in this case here, and actually, this was a really sad case that did not actually, it was not decided in, it was thrown out. So this person here had a whole lot of negative, incendiary, terrible things to say. It was racial. An ethics complaint was filed against him. Except that the person did not use the correct statutes. And the SEC reached out to them and said, hey, like, there's not a case here, but you didn't use the correct statutes, so you need to amend it. And they never did amend it. But, so it was thrown out. However, the SEC felt so strongly about it that they said that the respondent is still a publicly elected school official who is charged with serving, among other things, cause divisiveness should have no place in an educational setting. So this tells us that the ethics commission is really starting to take a good look at what is being posted out there. So just don't put yourself into that position. Just forget it. You have one of those cases on the school ethics commission gets their way. They're going to make you post it on your website. That's the last thing, right? Next. So it doesn't matter what the medium is, the opinion is expressed, the rules are the same. Use the SEC required disclaimer. Make sure that you understand that even if you use the disclaimer and you're still alluding to board matters, then you can still be held liable. Next. We're not going to talk about who qualifies as a relative. I already told you that. It's everybody that's related to you by blood, marriage, or adoption. I think we only have a couple more. Keep going. So the school district has an opening for a learning disabilities teacher. It'd be a perfect job for your nephew who lives 2 towns away. Can the district hire your nephew? No. You can't hire a relative, a board member, or a superintendent. The board is meeting to discuss the superintendent's performance evaluation. Your daughter is a substitute in the district, and you participate in the discussion.
Does she work for a substitute?
That's what makes this one interesting.
I was gonna say how she works.
Yeah. So if she gets her paycheck, from the district, the answer is no. If they get it from another company, we say, ask your board attorney. Board attorneys have different, they go back and forth on it. So whatever your board attorney advises you, that's fine. Next. We already established that you cannot hire a relative of a board member or the superintendent. Keep going. The board is voting to approve the memorandum of agreement with the local education association. You're a teacher in another district. Can you participate in the vote? Well, so I'm not going to give you the answer to it. I'm going to say, Sean, click to the next slide, because here's this really good handy-dandy little chart that we all refer to because we get tons of questions on it. And when we get questions on it, we just send you the chart. So no doubt you guys probably have a few conflicts in here. Somebody's in education, somebody's married, somebody in education, whatever. So you know what they are. Just know that if you have one of these, you can, you may not be able to participate in the division. And I'm not going to cover it in depth. I don't think we know that. Yeah, that's what I think. But I will say, that is today's version from the School Ethics Commission. And about every 18 months or so, they kind of flip back and forth on pieces of it. So just make sure that you keep up on that. We don't care about this. We don't care about the doctrine of necessity. You don't need it. Volunteering, I will tell you very quickly. You can volunteer in schools if you are a board member. However, if it involves, there's 4 slides to go into this, I'm not going to do it. If it involves regular sustained activity, that involves being supervised by staff or supervising students, you cannot do it. So, can I chaperone the 4th grade trip to see the Liberty Bell? Absolutely. It's not regular sustained activity. Do it. Can you drag a percussion equipment out on the football field? Yep, we can do that. Can I be the co-advisor to the Lego Club? No. Well, those are regular sustained activities and you're being supervised by staff or supervised. So that's the disclaimer. So you could go probably 3 slides because we make this really big. That's good. Yep. Questions? And please, I did not do that great of a job, so give me a question. I know new board members, there's a lot to take in. So, go. No other question?
I don't have any questions for you. I just really wanted you to come out to update us and to So like, you know, like when you walk into like another meeting, they don't say like, oh, look, there's Samantha. They say, oh, look, there's the board president. You know, so like we do a good job, I think, of when we do speak publicly, if we have to speak publicly, to make sure like, you know, to say, we don't say that exact disclaimer. But we say like, this is my opinion as a community member.
Community member. I'm
As
not
a
seeing
taxpayer in this
what we have to
district, in
do.
this
Yeah.
town, like things like that.
Yeah. And you might want to just add to it, and I'm not speaking on behalf of the board.
Oh, we do.
I say
We say that.
100 times a week.
Anybody else have any questions for Terry?
In case you haven't already done.
I just want to say thank you for coming and spending a long time since we've seen you in person and not on video at county meetings, so we look forward to.
Yes, we look forward to
seeing you
getting back to,
along.
you know,
Yeah, I'm so happy to hear a workshop.
yes.
I know, right?
We're very excited too.
You have like a smell, you can drink it.
You know what? They used to give like gold stars on the forehead when I was in school. Look, she's shaking her.
Make sure they're gold.
She knows.
Silver, he'd be very offended.
Thumbtack, thumbtack.
He must have gold.
A thumbtack, that'll work too.
A thumbtack.
Thank you, seriously, thank you.
It was my pleasure. Have a good night.
So the next regular board meeting, again, is the 4th Wednesday, which is the 27th, and it starts at 6:30, and it will be here, and it'll be the official budget presentation, so just make sure you mark your calendars, because it's after spring break. I need a motion to adjourn. Motion made by Patty, second by Naomi, all in favor? Ayes have it.